Oh, it's ready? Okay. Okay. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and get started then. In this workshop, this is Intro to Academic Discourse. So what we're going to be doing is kind of just overviewing what exactly is academic discourse, how do we enter into the conversation, how do we understand the conversation. Because discourse tends to be something that is spoken a lot in academia, but it's not necessarily something that we always understand the meaning of, okay? So what is academic discourse? Discourse in general just means some type of conversation that's going on. There are typically a lot of people involved in this conversation, and usually they're exchanging ideas between one another. For academic discourse specifically, we're talking about a scholarly discussion that's happening between academics, where we are exchanging ideas specific to academia. So what kind of examples can we think of where we might hear about some type of academic discourse?
Technological improvements? Yeah,
technological improvements, especially related to education, right? So some type of educational technology. So you might have a conference where people are talking about, let's say, how to use PowerPoint better to give workshops, right? Okay, cool. So in order to understand that conversation, let's first take a step back and let's realize that this is an ongoing conversation that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years, since the beginning of time, right? So if we want to talk about educational technology, we can probably pinpoint around a specific time where that conversation began, okay? But we also need to realize that we are entering into that conversation in the middle of it. So if you just walk in on two people having a conversation, you're probably gonna be a little bit disoriented, and that's okay. We understand that as teachers, and as students, we also need to understand that too. So in order to understand that conversation, you need to do a lot of research about that particular discourse. So first you need to actually initiate the resource. This means going out to the library to find out who is saying what, when are they saying it, why are they saying it, and how exactly are we going to enter into that conversation too. We need to locate specific and credible sources. So what is a credible source? What makes a source credible?
The amount of times it is used as a credible source.
Mm-hmm. So how many other people have cross-referenced this source for us, right? Usually you'll be able to find something that's scholarly and peer-reviewed. So if you use the library databases, you can always cross-reference with that. Afterwards, we need to evaluate our sources. So are they actually talking about the discourse that we want to enter into? After that, you need to read and annotate. So who saw the annotation video? Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if is this being recorded?
Yeah.
Like I have an appointment and I have an assignment for one of my classes. I've never been in so that's what I was like, I don't know what am I looking
Okay. No, so the annotation video is up on our YouTube site, and essentially whenever we annotate a video, we want to go through, highlight all the main ideas, the main concepts, and then make our key points, identify the main ideas in it. Afterwards, we want to assess. There we go. Afterwards, we want to assess. What exactly did we learn? What did we find out new about this? After we understand the conversation, then we can actually enter into the conversation. Before we enter into it, we want to make sure that we're asking questions so that we can actually really understand whether or not we know what that discourse is talking about. So, what's happening? Why is it important? What's missing? How do I know? What else? And, of course, what if? These are all questions that we want to ask as critical thinkers. So what I want to do really quickly is watch this video.
Hello everyone. Because this is my first time at TED, I've decided to bring along an old friend to let break the ice a bit. Yes, that's right. This is Barbie. She's 50 years old and she's looking as young as ever. But I'd also like to introduce you to what may be an
Sorry.
come in contact. This is Fulla. Fulla is the Arab world's answer to Barbie. Now, according to proponents of the clash of civilizations, Barbie and Fulla occupy these completely separate spheres. They have different interests, they have divergent values, and should they ever come in contact, well, I gotta tell you, it's just not gonna be pretty. My experience, however, in the Islamic world is very different. Where I work in the Arab region, people are busy taking up Western innovations and changing them into things which are neither conventionally Western nor are they traditionally Islamic. I want to show you two examples. The first is For Shabab. It means for youth, and it's a new Arab TV channel.
Video clips from across the globe. The USA.
I am not afraid to stand alone. I am not afraid to stand alone. If Allah's by my side, I am not afraid to stand alone. Everything will be alright. I am not afraid to stand alone.
The Arab world.
أغصانها قهر الحجاب قد سناها نور الكتاب.
For Shabab has been dubbed Islamic MTV. Its creator, who's an Egyptian TV producer called Ahmed Abu Haiba, wants young people to be inspired by Islam to lead better lives. He reckons the best way to get that message across is to use the enormously popular medium of music videos. For Shabab was set up as an alternative to existing Arab music channels, and they look something like this. That, by the way, is Haifa Wahbi. She's a Lebanese pop star and pan-Arab pinup girl. In the world of For Shabab, it's not about bump and grind, but it's not about fire and brimstone either. Its videos are intended to show a kinder, gentler face of Islam for young people to deal with life's challenges. Now, my second example is for a slightly younger crowd, and it's called The 99. Now, these are the world's first Islamic superheroes. They were created by a Kuwaiti psychologist called Nayef al-Mutawa, and his desire is to rescue Islam from images of intolerance, all in a child-friendly format. The 99, the characters are meant to embody the 99 attributes of Allah: justice, wisdom, mercy, among others. So, for example, there is the character of Noura. She is meant to have the power to look inside people and see the good and bad in everyone. Another character called Jamie has the ability to create fantastic inventions. Now, The 99 is not just a comic book. It's now a theme park. There's an animated series in the works. And by this time next year, the likes of Superman and Wonder Woman will have joined forces with The 99 to beat injustice wherever they find it. The 99 and For Shabab are just two of many examples of this sort of Islamic cross-cultural hybridization. We're not talking here about a clash of civilizations, nor is it some sort of indistinguishable mash. I like to think of it as a mesh of civilizations in which the strands of different cultures are intertwined. Now, while For Shabab and the 99 may look new and shiny, there's actually a very long tradition of this. Throughout its history, Islam has borrowed and adapted from other civilizations, both ancient and modern. After all, it's the Quran which encourages us to do this. We made you into nations and tribes so that you could learn from one another. And to my mind, those are pretty wise words, no matter what your creed. Thank you.
Okay, so this TED Talk is an example of academic discourse that we would see ideally or particularly in the social sciences. So a lot of the times as students, we will come into a classroom and be kind of exposed to these types of conversations that are happening. It's up to us now as students to try to find our place within that conversation. So again, if we go back into trying to understand the conversation, We need to do a little bit of research. So let's first identify what this TED Talker was speaking about. So what exactly is the speaker's message?
Her message is about how these two different cultures are coming together.
Okay, so we're talking about this sort of idea of cultural appropriation or cultural hybridization. Okay, so now we want to identify at least one topic of discussion. So throughout the TED Talk, our speaker introduced a lot of different ideas. We can talk specifically about media hybridization. We could always talk about the use of toys or play in Islamic culture. We could talk about Islamic pop culture. What are some topics that you notice?
I noticed that she covered extensively how the women would otherwise appeared in that religion, because from the Barbie doll to the girl that was being sung about the music video.
So we might discuss female representation. And not only just female representation, but just like you talked about, female representation in Islamic popular culture. So that's a good one. Let's go off with that now. So if we want to enter into this particular discourse, which is not only specific, but it's also a topic that has been going on for a really, really long time, we need to go ahead and research the topic in its discourse community, so then we can actually think critically about it. So what's going to be the first step when we research?
Find credible sources for the topic.
Exactly. We need to find the credible sources. After that, we need to evaluate those sources, determine whether or not they are credible, whether or not they are related to our topic, and whether or not we can actually use them to inform ourselves. Okay. So if we can, we do have some more time left. What I would like to do, let me pull it up for you. Let's do some research on this topic. What I want you to do here, the easiest way to research a topic is to just go ahead and Google it. So go ahead and Google this topic for me.
Women in Islam International Association of Sufism. Or there's also an Oxford study which regards to this.
Wow. Okay, cool. So what we can do then, we can find what's going to be the most credible source.
Most likely the Oxford study, because the International Association might be specifically with regards to the more religious women versus the group as a whole.
Absolutely. So let's look at the Oxford Islamic Studies Online Journal, and let's see. So this one's giving us a whole bunch of information about women in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, so this one's giving us some type of background information that will teach us and educate us on the entire topic of women in Islam. So it's probably a really good starting place for us to go through this type of journal or this type of website to find more information. After we find that information is when we're actually going to ask those specific questions. What's happening? So what's happening with female representation in Islamic pop culture, or just in general, women in Islam?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important? So why is it important for us to know about female representations? How does this actually affect not only just the women who are being represented, but the entire culture of Islam, the entire society as a whole, the global state of Islam?
And how it's perceived.
And how it's perceived. That's really important, especially right now. What is missing? Is there anything from the discussion that maybe we want to talk about? How do I know? So how do I actually know that all of this is happening? What kind of sources can I pull that reinforce my knowledge? Is there anything else? And then what if? What if we look at female representations in a different type of culture? So let's say we want to look at female representation in Islamic religion. We can always do that too. Now we have the access, we have the resource to enter into the conversation. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool beans. All right. Here's our workshop overview. Again, we defined academic discourse, which is
a conversation, how you do the research on that long-standing conversation and enter into it.
yes, perfect. We need to understand the environment, then we can step into the discourse, okay? All right, so this is the end of our Intro to Academic Workshop, or Intro to Academic Discourse workshop, and I would like to thank you. All right, bye everybody.